I weigh it. It's true. I just left Wisconsin. We 5 days ago, we had a sort of a rally. It wasn't supposed to be. 60,000 people showed up in Wisconsin. But the White House wouldn't give us proper security coverage. So we end up in a room of about 900 people.
No, I'm sure he's telling the truth, just as this room was filled, right?
And who else can fill up? Only MAGA. But whoever fills big places like this at 3 o'clock in the afternoon? We're going to be meeting. We're going to think of it. Last election, we did great in 2016. A lot of people don't know. We did much better in 2020. We won. We did win. It was a rigged election. You have to tell Kamala Harris, that's why I'm doing it again. If I thought I lost, I wouldn't be doing this again. You know where I'd be right now? On the beaches of Monte Carlo, maybe, or someplace.
But wait, J.D. Vance and Tom Emmer have spent the last 2 days yelling at the media that we're the ones obsessed with this. And yet here's their fearless cult leader shifting once again from, we lost by a whisker.
But they beat us by a whisker. They beat us just by a little whisker. He beat us from the basement.
Back to full-fledged QAnon conspiracies. That's right, Trump held another rally today, this time in Michigan, and here's the Cliff Notes version.
You're not going to do it through wind. The wind isn't blowing, darling. Let's turn on the television. Let's try it anyway. I want to see President Trump make a speech tonight. No, darling, the wind isn't blowing. We have no juice in the house. We have no juice.
Riveting, right? Another 14 hours of windmill ramblings, unsubstantiated attacks, and glaring admissions of how he used to treat his workers. All in front of a dwindling crowd that could barely make up half the space. That's when they weren't trying to kill each other outside. But on those very comments regarding overtime.
Overtime, I used to hate to pay overtime. When I was in the private sectors, they say, oh, I don't want over, you know, I shouldn't tell you this. I'd go out and get other people and let them work regular time. It's terrible. I'd say, no, get me 10 other guys. I don't want to have time and a half. I don't want to have, but it'll be great. I mean, it'll be, those 3 things are great, but our seniors really deserve it because they've been decimated.
You just know, right, when these 5 words come out of Donald Trump's lying mouth, it's bound to be something shocking. When he says, I shouldn't say this, but it's an acknowledgement that he knows the rest of the sentence will be politically problematic. But he doesn't care, and he's simply unable to help himself. And what followed was an admission that he simply wouldn't pay overtime. Going as far to say that it's a good idea to admit that he, as a boss, deliberately took steps to deny his own employees overtime.
That's what's happening. They stole the FEMA money just like they stole it from a bank so they could give it to their illegal immigrants that they want to have vote for them this season. You know, they're trying overtime. I used to hate to pay overtime. When I was in the private sectors, they say, oh, I don't want over, you know, I shouldn't tell you this. I'd go out and get other people and let them work regular time. It's terrible. I'd say, no, get me 10 other guys. I don't want to have time and a half. I don't want to have, but it'll be great. I mean, it'll be, those 3 things are great, but our seniors really deserve it because they've been decimated.
And I'm just sitting here wondering if the Teamsters president happened to catch the most anti-worker, anti-union presidential candidate in the history of the country openly admit to firing workers who wanted overtime for their labor to replace them. Yes, and somehow Teamsters are on the fence.
All right, Jessica, Joe Biden is one of the most pro-union presidents that we've ever had. How is it that Kamala has not been able to benefit and that the Teamsters have actually turned from her?
Well, I don't think that's a complete picture of what happened. So obviously it would be better to have gotten the endorsement. And it seems to be a lot about Sean O'Brien, because if you look into how this poll was conducted, so they polled 21,000 members, and there are 1.3 million members overall. So that's about 1.5% sample size. And right after Sean O'Brien came out and said, we're not endorsing anyone, and released the results of the polls, all of these individual chapters started endorsing her. The National Black Caucus, Michigan, Western PA, Northern West Virginia, Wisconsin, Northern Nevada, Southern Nevada, Philly, et cetera. She has the auto workers endorsement, the culinary union endorsement, the AFL-CIO.
We're talking about the Teamsters. She didn't get the Teamsters endorsement.
But I'm saying that a million, the Teamsters
people gave her their endorsement.
No, it's over a million people.
For 30 years, the Democrats have given
I wish that she had gotten the endorsement. There is work to do, but You can, in good conscience, argue if I tell you that they polled 21,000 people and then I tell you that
now you're
a
going to go after
million
the
people.
poll. What about the fact that 60% support Trump and only 38 support her?
But when you have a sample of 21,000 out of 1.3 million members and then you get endorsements from a million Teamsters after that, doesn't that indicate that the poll might not be the greatest representation? Again, it's not good to not get it. Sean O'Brien seems to be playing a bit of politics with all of this, but there is heavy union support for her, not just within the Teamsters, but all of those other unions that I just mentioned.
And the irony is, right, that there are still some political observers who like to pretend that the former president is some kind of ally to working class Americans.
You got to get out and vote, but you got to help them financially because you're all people that have a lot of money. I know 20 of you and you're rich as hell. So anything you were going to do it, quadruple it. It doesn't mean it's just, you know. But
and the reality is it couldn't be further from the truth. And what's more is, let's not forget that the GOP nominee recently endorsed ending taxes on overtime pay, but he gave up the gambit here and in previous rallies, showing that Trump, while in office, was needlessly regressive on overtime compensation. And his "I wouldn't pay" comment only reinforces the obvious fact that he tries to appeal populist simply to garner votes, but when he gets in office, he is so anti-worker, it's unbelievable. In fact, it's very believable because he has been his entire career.
Years and years of deep state. And you know, I see it in my own company. While my company is a lot newer, over the years, we have Christmas bonus time, right? And we've done well. Now, I pay somebody a bonus 20 years ago. Then you give them a little more, a little more, a little more. Now it's 20 years later. All of a sudden I'm saying, I'm paying them too much. I'm paying them too much. I mean, I'm paying some guys much more than I should be paying. You know why? Time. Same thing with the unions. They get a little increase, they get another.
What are your guys?
40, 50
do you give them
years
a condo
ago.
or what do you give them?
No, I just give them bonuses. But you know, I always
But
like
I
to give
know
a
it's
little
not
bit
a
more.
hickory cheese log.
No,
I know that.
I'm not even talking about top level people. I'm talking about, you go a little bit, a little bit, little bit, little bit. All of a sudden 20 years is up and now you're saying, man, that's a lot of money. I'm sitting behind
But
my
see,
desk
then they
signing these
expect
checks.
it, right?
They expect
December
it.
rolls
And it's-
around and they think Don's going to be good to me.
Neil, it's the same thing with the unions.
That's right.
They get their little 5%. They get another 2%. They get another 3%, 4%. Then all of a sudden they're making more money than the people that own the company.
And with all this in mind, Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign wasted no time pouncing on the Republican for speaking his mind, stating, quote, "Donald Trump is finally owning up to it. He's built an entire career on screwing over workers." It's exactly what he did in the White House, trying to rip away tips and overtime pay for millions of workers, and exactly what he plans to do in a second term. Trump is a scab, plain and simple. Pulling no punches, and I love it.
She's gotten the endorsement of every major union across the country for the simple fact that she stands with labor. The Biden-Harris administration was the most pro-labor administration we've seen in decades. And Donald Trump now has a record. Back in 2016, okay, he didn't have a record. He made some promises. Those promises were not fulfilled. He tried to pack the National Labor Relations Board with anti-labor activists, if you will. And that's devastating. So
now, let me tell you what it's like being a union member under Donald Trump. He told us he wouldn't allow factories to shut down, and then guess what happened? Factories across Michigan closed their doors. Trump said he was going to protect our jobs and then lost nearly 300,000 jobs on his watch, including more than 30,000 of these manufacturing jobs. And then with the Project 2025 agenda, it will give him power to go after the right to organize. And it will try to dismantle our unions and then make life even more expensive for us.
It is so true and frustrating that this has to be reiterated, right? But I'll say it until I'm blue in the face. The billionaire sending tweets from the penthouse is not the working class hero here. He exploits workers for his own gain. Always has, always will. So vote accordingly.
President focus on in his rally today. Well, Pamela, that's actually a little bit more of a difficult question than you might think, because his focus was all over the place. They had billed this as a speech on the economy, and sure, he touched on some of those policies, particularly no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security or overtime. But the speech really veered in multiple different directions. We heard him using some of his favorite catchphrases, calling Nancy Pelosi crazy, talking about how Gavin Newsom was crazy, saying Kamala Harris ruined California, and also talking about how Kamala Harris never worked at McDonald's, something that he has insisted on fixating on. But the other thing that he really kept going back to was this conversation around the federal response to Hurricane Helene. And the reason why that's notable is because Donald Trump and his team have been really trying to connect Kamala Harris to the current administration. Not hard. She is the vice president. But in that response as well, he was saying that it was one of the worst responses that anyone has ever seen. Now, that is not the indication we have on the ground at all. We have heard from a number of governors, from a number of state officials who say that, yes, it is still very bad, but we're not hearing any kind of trashing of the federal response in the way that Donald Trump spent so much time doing on the stage.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.